Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Suddenly there was this sound just like emanating across the sky, across the square. I live on a square, and it was this beautiful, beautiful voice singing Amazing Grace. And I just came and stood next to the window, and I couldn't see them. I couldn't see who was singing. I felt like there was a whole choir singing from the heavens. I was just in awe, and it was just, the words were so beautiful, and they felt so poignant at the time.
But now I see.
So back in March, you probably remember, we were put on lockdown in the UK, and we realised we weren't going to be able to move about, we weren't going to be able to gather for understandable reasons. And I realised as a vicar, as we all did, that our people weren't going to be able to come to church. So I had the simple thought, well, if people can't go to church, maybe the church should go to the people. So that's what I decided. I simply thought, well, what if I headed into the parish, into the streets of my patch with a loudspeaker system and a microphone, and just simply played a hymn and led a prayer for the people there. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know, am I going to get, rotten eggs and tomatoes thrown at me? Am I going to get told to get lost? But after we played the song, amazingly, there was a real, just wonderful sense and a wonderful, just lightness in the atmosphere. So people had come to their windows in the high-rise towers behind and in the cottages in front. People had stopped on the road if they were jogging or whatever, and people really seemed to enjoy it. And there was a ripple of applause that went round. I was amazed by the response. And in that moment, I sort of realized, you know what, I think this could really help people. It could really encourage people. It could be a blessing at this time when people are cut off from community, cut off from loved ones, where they're not able to see each other, and where hope really is challenged, and we do need to lift our spirits.
It was particularly that version of the song. I'd never heard that version before, and there was something just quite hauntingly beautiful about it. Like, I think music can be a very moving thing, even if you're not religious. I think quite often hymns can be a very moving thing to listen to, and that particular version of that particular song did just seem to kind of speak to the moment in time that we were all in, this time of kind of great uncertainty, and lots of people were feeling very worried and very anxious, and there was something just that I found quite it brought peace. I think it brought peace, and I really appreciated that at the time.
Yeah, it was just one of the most beautiful sounds I've heard in a long time, and it really did affect me in a very strange way. I'm not religious or anything, but I just felt like a sort of a hope, a promise. Yeah, and I think I even cried. It was just, it was really an emotional thing for me. I feel very thankful for just, for someone sort of awakening those feelings in me, which I would say was faith, hope, promise, and love. I'm not a religious person. I don't have any beliefs or anything, but it did make me feel something like faith.
I actually heard a prayer. I think it was, I'm not religious either, so it's the Lord's Prayer, and then it was thanking the NHS, and I had tears and I welled up. I had been in the hospital all day, so it was really, really poignant, like really beautiful.
And every time I hear that tune, it just gives me goosebumps, and Pat seems to be a really powerful communicator, and I think he just picked up on a mood and a need for that message, really, that kind of message of hope. And even if you're not religious, I think we can all kind of share in that message of a need for a message of hope.
'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved.
It's been been very humbling to see how God has used this to reach and touch a lot of people. The more I went out, the more I'd hear from people on Instagram, you know, contacting the Portable Priest saying, you know, I've just seen your clip and it's really moved me. I'm not religious, but, you know, it's touched me. I'm crying, I've got goosebumps, you know, this is beautiful. And it just amazed me how, obviously I'm a Christian, I believe there's a God. It amazed me how God was moving in and through it and using it to just bless and meet with people. And most people who don't even know him, but just sensing, I would say, sensing God's presence on this and being moved by that. And yeah, just touched by the peace and the sense of hope and love.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of Charing Cross Hospital.
I heard from one nurse who was in Charing Cross Hospital at that moment who said, you know, thank you so much for coming. As you began to play, I was with a patient who went on to lose her fight with coronavirus. You'll never know the peace that song brought me and her in that moment. Thank you so much. And she said she was bawling her eyes out, crying. You know, that touches me. And one woman who got in touch on Facebook to say that her uncle was in Charing Cross Hospital as I played Amazing Grace. And what she said is her uncle died the next morning alone, on his own, in Charing Cross Hospital. And she wrote, to think that this song was the last thing that he heard on this planet brings tears to my eyes and warmth to my heart. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And it's those kinds of responses, you know, those testimonies, stories, if you like, that has fueled me and just meant that I've gone out, you know, 62 times now to go and try and take it to others, knowing that it will be a blessing, you know, because I've experienced and heard from others whom it has blessed.
So the COVID situation came at an interesting time, and I deal with mental health issues, specifically manic depression, and then I'm also in addiction recovery. I was in a really dark place. I was very much struggling with suicidal ideation and this heavy depression that I really could not push past or get through. And I found myself trying to pray and just really questioning, you know, God, where are you? Where are you in all of this? Where are you in my pain? Where are you in everyone else's pain? Where are you in the sick and the dying? Where are you in the people that are just holding on by a thread? Because I think I was hitting that wall that a lot of people with mental health, when you're in that place you get to, where you're standing on this ledge and you're considering the jump. And so I kept having these thoughts, and then I was trying to distract myself. So I picked up my phone and I started looking through YouTube videos. And so I think through one of the creators that I was looking at, he had a little blurb on this guy called the Portable Priest. And I thought the name was kind of funny. And I clicked on the link to just kind of see what this whole Portable Priest thing was about, and watched a video of Pat Allerton driving his little bicycle and setting up a sound system and playing Amazing Grace. And I had a very, very emotional reaction to that. I grew up being a choir girl, and hymns are very sacred to me. That song, Amazing Grace in particular, was my favorite song to sing to my grandmother, who was my favorite person. And my grandmother passed away several years ago, and that was the song that I sang at her memorial. And I felt like hearing that song was like God telling me to stay. And then that comfort that it always brought me because of my connection with my grandmother. And just, I sat with that song just for that 24 hours. And, you know, the gift of the internet is that this priest in London can ride the streets of London and set up a sound system and play this song and pray a blessing over those streets. And that's not just reaching that little section of London. That's coming and bouncing through the internet across the pond to this woman in California who's desperately trying to find a reason to keep breathing. And that's the power of connection. And what Pat is doing for his surrounding communities has been amazing. And it's, I have found that since that moment, whereas I still am struggling with depression and with anxiety, that particular moment and that encounter and experience and that connection has really put sort of a reset button in my heart. And it's allowed me to just kind of hold with both hands hope, and that things might still be hard and things might still be difficult, but God hasn't forgotten about me, and he hasn't forgotten about my story. And there's not a period at the end of the sentence yet. It's still ongoing and it's still unfolding. And there is amazing grace in that. And there are things to hope for and look forward to. So that's kind of how the Portal Priest and the story of Amazing Grace found its way to California, and specifically to me, and what it has done and how it has affected me.
How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed.
Well, I think the song Amazing Grace is such a beautiful song anyway, but the version we found just randomly on Spotify by Judy Collins, who's a rocker, I think, from the 60s, from my mum's era. The way she sings the hymn that we've been playing is just the most beautiful version I've ever heard. It's hauntingly beautiful. And I think the words themselves speak of God's love to us. I mean, his amazing grace. And grace just means gift, God's gift to us of sending his son for us because he loves us and wants to bring us home. And the whole hymn, all the lyrics carry that sense of God's love, his welcome to all human beings to come to him, no matter our background, no matter what we've done, no matter whether we feel worthy or not, we can come freely. And that's the spirit that this hymn, I think, carries, and it unlocks people, and they recognize it, and they maybe sang it at school, or they heard it at a loved one's funeral, or whatever it is. It touches them, it connects with them, and then having a moment of stillness where they can be quiet and just have a moment's peace, but knowing perhaps if there is a God, he's watching, he's listening, and he's there with them then. Other communities have run with this vision. So I've heard of it happening in Norfolk. Some friends in Cirencester did it. I've heard of it taking place in Bristol and down in Cornwall. This is really, capturing something of the imagination at this time. And people, I've loved to see other people just doing the same thing, because I think the power is in the music and is in the lyrics of Amazing Grace and God's presence through that prayer. I think it has a special power in that moment to bring us together and to just unite our hearts in a shared moment, a shared experience. And I think that's what I've seen. I've gone out 62 times now and done it all over different places of London. And it's been the same response every single time. And that's amazing to me, that we're all affected in similar ways. And we're all looking for the same stuff. We are looking for connection, for relationship, for hope, and for meaning. And I think a moment like this helps just bring a sense of meaning and stability in the storm.